emotional about the hounding of the press and the paparazzi and how they were making her life miserable. So I think I did my job.
Matt Lauer, who made $25 million annually on NBC Today Show, was America's most trusted morning anchor. However, there was a sinister secret behind the cameras that would ruin everything. His life was forever altered in November 2017 by a single complaint. He was sacked and banned from NBC within a day. Then the startling information was revealed. Several victims, decades, old accusations, and a hidden button behind his desk. Millions of Americans were awakened by the man who will never work again. We're sharing the truth about what actually transpired and his current way of life today. On December 30th, 1957, Matt Lauer was born in the center of New York City. His upbringing was anything not typical. His dad, J. Robert Lauer, who was of Romanian Jewish descent, was an executive at a bicycle manufacturer. Marilyn Cora, his mother, owned her own store and was a model. Matt grew up in two worlds that couldn't be separated. One was influenced by the work ethic and values of immigrants. The other focused on public appearance, style, and image. He carried these early influences with him. They made him more polished and adaptive, and conscious of how others perceive you. Crucial abilities for a person who would eventually address millions of people live on television. In his family, Matt wasn't the first to take center stage. Art Gentry, his grandfather, had a career as a singer. Though he wasn't well known, young Matt frequently attended his performances during the height of music's popularity. His grandfather's command of a stage left a lasting impression. It was more than just amusement. The topic was how to engage an audience. Everything was absorbed. He gained knowledge on how to project confidence, maintain composure, and communicate in a way that captivated listeners. His on-air approach would later be defined by these lessons, which predate any journalism school. Matt started attending Ohio University in the late 1970s. He was on track to graduate after selecting communications as his major. However, in 1979, at the age of 21, he took a risk. He was only 4 credits away from earning his degree when he dropped out. He didn't hold out for a degree. He desired actual experience, and he understood. His first position was at Walk TV in Huntington, West Virginia, where he produced news. It was the beginning, but it wasn't glamorous. Matt wasn't merely punching the clock either. He put in a lot of effort, picked things up quickly, and became productive. In less than a year, he was doing on-camera reporting and even landing a piece on his own talk show. He was moving quickly, as evidenced by his early promotion to on-air reporter in 1980 at the age of just 22. Matt wasn't like that, which was odd for someone so young, especially without a degree. He tackled both the 6 p.m. and the deep end, 11 p.m. broadcasts in a market of moderate size. These weren't chunks of fluff. Under pressure, live news was broadcast. Even as a novice, people began to notice Matt's composed demeanor. He wanted to become an expert in television, not just get a job. Ooh. Matt co-hosted PM Magazine in 3 different cities between 1980 and 1986. Richmond came first, followed by Providence and New York City. Moving markets like way, especially with consistent success, was uncommon for a host. PM Magazine included a fast-paced blend of lifestyle articles, celebrity pieces, and local topics. It was difficult to execute, particularly when each location had a different tone. However, Matt did. With each move, he improved, adapted, and discovered what each audience desired. He gained visibility in the nation's largest media market during his stint on the show's New York edition. It was a significant advancement. Matt had his first serious opportunity to appear on national television in 1986. A spin-off of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, ABC debuted the program Fame, Fortune, and Romance. He co-hosted it with Robin Leach, who is well known for touring famous estates and having a theatrical voice. The show showcased yachts, private aircraft, and the lifestyles of millionaires in an extravagant and ostentatious manner. It was short-lived, less than a year. However, it exposed Matt to viewers nationwide. He was no longer merely a local name. He was beginning to gain traction. Matt was accomplishing something that nearly no one else could do by the late 1980s. He was simultaneously employed in several cities. Between 1987 and 1989, he worked for ESPN and HBO in addition to juggling local hosting jobs in Boston and Philadelphia. He would cover entertainment portions for HBO and sporting events like the Stanley Cup Finals for ESPN. It required a lot of travel, long hours, and little sleep. Industry insiders took notice. He was everywhere. That grind paid off, and some even made fun of the fact that he lived at the airport. He established a reputation for being able to do everything effectively, including news, sports, and entertainment. From 1989 to 1991, Matt Lauer's tenure on 9 Broadcast Plaza was more than simply a typical local news position. In New York, the show aired live for 3 hours every day on WOR-TV, and things quickly became bizarre. In an attempt to capitalize on the surge of early 1990s shock TV culture, producers began to invite more outrageous and contentious guests. The direction didn't sit well with Lauer. He frequently argued with the producers and even objected to reading live advertisements for a sponsor of Dial-Up mattress, which was uncommon for someone who was still establishing a reputation. His tenure ended unexpectedly, and after he left, hosts Howard Stern and Strange-O Yankovic took over for a while. Later, that same program changed its name to The Richard Bey Show, which gained notoriety for its Miss Big Butt contests and lie detector tests. However, Lauer had already left when it went awry. He nearly ran out of money by 1992. He was on the verge of missing a rent check and didn't have a regular TV job. Then he received a lifeline from WNBC-TV. He and Jane Hansen were hired to co-anchor Today in New York. Even though the episode premiered early in the morning, it was sufficient to help him get back on his feet. He was elevated to co-anchor Live at 5, one of the station's most popular nightly positions, a year later. For a while, he worked on both shows, occasionally making appearances on 3 separate NBC shows in one day. The long hours were worthwhile. He became known for being reliable, polished, and remarkably kind for a newscaster. News vitality was evident. He established relationships with NBC officials and added a human touch to rigid programs. He gained national recognition during the early WNBC years. Lauer was NBC go-to person for anything from 1992 to 1997. When Tom Brokaw wasn't there, he filled in on Weekend Today, NBC News at Dawn, and even NBC Nightly News. He had a tough schedule. He would cover prime news at night, noon news at lunch, and the weather at morning. It made no difference. He continued to show up and perform well. His name became a byword for dependability at NBC. His ability to fit into any role without hesitation was recognized by others. He wasn't showy, but he was reliable and adaptable. Trust with top executives was developed throughout those years. Wow. His appointment as the Today Show's full-time news anchor in January 1994 marked a sea change as a result of that trust. He rose quickly and steadily after that. Lauer still hadn't completed his college degree, despite his increasing notoriety. Nearly 20 years prior, he had graduated from Ohio University with just 4 credits remaining. He eventually returned in 1997 when he was 39 years old. The president of the university asked him to deliver the commencement address in addition to completing his degree. Rather than attending conventional lectures, Lauer produced a paper discussing the connection between his studies and his television career. He crossed the stage with the class of 1997 that summer, over 20 years after his contemporaries. It was more than just symbolic to him. It was personal. That moment gave me more pride than many of my career accomplishments, he added afterward. He received the Medal of Merit from Ohio University's Alumni Association 2 years later, in 1999, in appreciation of his efforts and the motivation he provided to other late finishers. On June 13, 1994, Matt Lauer formally assumed the position of news anchor for the Today Show, marking the beginning of his career at NBC. At the time, the show was having trouble, losing viewers to America's Good Morning. Lauer's presence was just what NBC needed, a shift. Unlike most network anchors, he wasn't stiff, People felt as though he belonged in their living room because of his warmth. In just 3 years, he contributed to the change. Viewers began returning. In a fresh and organic approach, he blended interviews with celebrities with sobering news. NBC saw right away he filled in for well-known actors like Tom Brokaw and Bryant Gumbel. Usually, someone so new wouldn't get that type of trust, but Lauer showed he could manage it. His Q rating had skyrocketed by the time he was promoted to co-anchor. He was more than just well-liked. He was among NBC's most bankable names. Although it wasn't always simple, Lauer developed close bonds with his co-hosts throughout those early years. It was necessary to learn how to share space on camera when working with seasoned pros like Bryant Gumbel. And away. Gumbel has a reputation for being domineering. He enjoyed starting the program, directing the major scenes, and holding the reins. Lauer, who was 9 years younger than him, chose not to confront it directly. Rather, he won people over with charm and comedy. It was different with Katie Couric, faux friend. Their bond was instinctive. Later, Couric said that she had harbored feelings for Lauer when he was reporting local news. Their on-screen chemistry brightened the mornings. They made fun of one another, laughed, and even completed each other's words. Although it seemed flirtatious, the audience adored it. The show felt new because of the way they complimented one another. Because of that connection, Today felt more like a morning ritual than a newscast. Lauer handled more than simply the delicate matters. During significant news events, his abilities were truly evident. He was already covering major national and international stories before he was promoted to co-anchor. When it counted most, NBC trusted him with live coverage. The Oklahoma City bombing in April 1995 was one of his first difficulties. It was a time when the show's typically light tone needed to shift. Lauer participated in that change. With a composed demeanor, he assisted in breaking bad news. During a disaster, that moment provided viewers with a sense of steadiness. He talked about the O.J. trial of Simpson, maintaining a delicate balance between serious reporting and morning audiences' accessibility. These encounters demonstrated Lauer's capacity for more than mere small conversation. He was establishing himself as a reliable person in times of uncertainty. Lauer received a promotion to co-anchor on January 6, 1997. It was a significant step. He was succeeding prominent industry figure Bryant Gumbel. There was a lot of pressure. During that first week, everyone was keeping an eye on him to see if he could manage it. He not only made it through it, but flourished. That particular week's ratings were the second highest in the show's history. In addition to the news, audiences reacted to the vibe Lauer and Couric exuded together. He was referred to as the hunk next door on NBC, but his appearance wasn't the only factor. He was astute, nimble, and skilled at guiding an interview. He became the show's face throughout the ensuing 2 decades. He conducted interviews with world-changing events, celebrities, and presidents. His tenure on Today influenced a generation's perception of morning television. Matt also started taking on more significant jobs at the same time. He joined Dateline NBC as a contributing anchor in 1997. He was pushed into the field of investigative reporting over that 20-year tenure. He covered more than just humorous tales. He covered long-form documentaries, mysteries, and cultural topics. He oversaw primetime programs and worked on weighty subjects that weren't limited to morning broadcasts. Matt crossed that line for 20 years, something that most morning anchors never get to do. Millions of primetime viewers joined him on the journey, which enhanced his journalistic reputation. Who was capable of both hard news and entertaining? Compared to most other news characters, he appeared more adaptable, dependable, and permanent because of his dual presence. During this period, his personal life also changed quickly. He went on a blind date with Dutch model Annette Roquet in July 1997. They were married in Bridgehampton, New York on October 3, 1998, a mere 5 months later. Both fans and media took notice of the hasty marriage. Raised at the age of 22, Annette, known as Jade in the modeling industry, was already enjoying success in Paris and New York. She was a model for J. Crew and Victoria's Secret. Crew and added her own unique brand of global style to the partnership. Later, Matt acknowledged that he didn't connect with her right away on their first date. They didn't even share a kiss for roughly 2 months, but when they did advance, they did so quickly. Because it brought together a European fashion model and one of America's most well-known television personalities, their marriage became a media sensation. Despite the fact that they would eventually have 3 children together, they had significant problems in their relationship. On June 26, 2001, Jack Matthew, their first child, was born. In October 2003, their daughter Romy was born, and in November 2006, their youngest child, Tiz, was born. It appeared to be the ideal family at first glance. Matt spoke on celebrating milestones, family dinners, the quiet times, and raising children together. The foundation of their family life was eroded by the pressure of his job and the continual attention they received, even if those small things seemed to matter more than the spotlight. Things were not always as peaceful as they seemed, despite the fact that they frequently went to public events together, such as their kids' horseback riding contests and school graduations. Annette filed for divorce in 2006 while she was expecting Tice. The submission was really startling. She allegedly accused Matt of humiliation, emotional suffering, mental abuse, and domineering conduct. She claimed that he was extremely hostile and angry, and that he even attempted to influence even the smallest choices they made. Well, it depicted a very different image from what viewers thought they saw on TV. The entire scenario was made considerably more agonizing by the timing. They were portraying themselves as a solid family, living in the Hamptons and expecting their 3rd kid. However, reality was disintegrating. Their inner circle and the general public, who had viewed them as the perfect pair, were both awakened by the divorce filing. Everyone was taken aback by what happened next. Annette retracted the divorce petition only a few weeks after it was filed. They made the decision to resolve their differences through counseling. Given the seriousness of the accusations, many believed the breakup was inevitable. However, Matt and Annette appeared to concur that their children should be given another opportunity at family life. They continued to live together in public for the following 10 years. They made an effort to offer their kids a feeling of normalcy by continuing to attend events together. However, there was a lot of emotional work done behind the scenes. Although they appeared to be a couple, friends later said that they were frequently leading totally different lifestyles. Matt's public image was maintained by the reconciliation, but the issues that initially prompted the divorce filing were not resolved. Matt Lauer's career was ruined by a scandal that started subtly during the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. As the primary host of NBC Today's show, he earned $20 million annually at the time, making him one of the most dependable faces on American television. However, there was a horrible thing going on behind the scenes. Lauer sexually attacked a young NBC staffer in his hotel room during the Olympics, the network was later informed. She said it wasn't a misunderstanding, but the specifics were unsettling. Rape was the crime. Brooke Neville's was her name. And her story was kept secret until Ronan Farrow's 2019 book Catch and Kill made it public. That incident in Sochi would subtly set off a series of events that would ultimately bring Lauer's career to an end. NBC immediately started an internal inquiry after receiving the report. Less than a day after learning of the report, on November 29, 2017, Lauer was dismissed by NBC. Everyone was taken aback by the pace. Only minutes before they were to make the announcement live on the air, his co-hosts Hoda Kotb and Savannah Guthrie learned about it. As they broke the news to millions of people, they appeared sad and in shock. Lauer left the show in a matter of hours after 20 years. However, what transpired was even more intense. At least 3 additional women shared their own accounts of harassment within a day. Their stories weren't unique. They displayed a distinct behavioral pattern that had persisted for many years. According to other ladies, they had previously attempted to report him, but nobody paid attention. Lauer had so much power at the network that many people were too scared to speak up. As the tales mounted, it became clear that this was about a working culture that allowed this to occur rather than simply one individual. Then the most unsettling information appeared. A report was released by Variety. Following interviews with dozens of NBC staff members, both past and present, they disclosed that Lauer was able to lock his office door from the inside by using a hidden button beneath his desk. Several women said he used it to trap them, but NBC insisted it was just a normal security measure. According to the paper, he allegedly exposed himself to coworkers, asked ladies about their sexual lives, and offered them sex items as gifts. He made fun of them or punished them if they objected. They weren't hearsay. These were first-person reports from those who had spent years working with him. It became evident that the abuse had been permitted to continue in this poisonous setting. One of the scariest tales dates back to 2001. Lauer summoned her to his office throughout the workday, according to a former Today show producer. He shut the door behind her after she entered by pressing the concealed button. "Unbutton your blouse," he instructed her. He then attacked her. She said that she fainted during the assault and awoke on the ground with her trousers undone. She needed to be taken to a nurse by Lauer's aide. She was worried that it might destroy her career, so she chose not to disclose it. Lauer was invincible in those days. Nobody would have taken her seriously. The hush allowed him to continue. In November 2017, NBC made it apparent that he was sacked permanently. Just before the day's live broadcast at approximately 6:30 a.m., the network chairman addressed a memo to the staff. According to the message, Lauer had transgressed NBC standards, and the company thought the incident wasn't unique. Additionally, they declined to fulfill the remainder of his contract. NBC abruptly terminated Lauer's $20 million yearly contract and refused to provide him with any severance pay. He was fired for cause, which indicates that they thought the misconduct was severe enough to terminate the agreement completely. That choice was a clear indication that they no longer wished to interact with him. Months had already passed since Variety began its inquiry. The timing was explosive. They released their whole findings the same day Lauer was sacked. They detailed an ongoing practice of harassment, which included Lauer exposing himself by providing sex toys with obscene remarks and making offensive remarks all the time. Workers reported that there was a fearful environment. Many felt powerless to speak up while knowing what was happening. The complaint that NBC received was not new information, as the report made clear. They had only taken action on the first one. The allegations that NBC management had been aware of Lauer's actions for years were even more startling. According to several employees, complaints have gone unanswered. According to one former worker, management had shielded him because he was too crucial to the network. Even while NBC denied knowing anything beforehand, the harm had already been done. People started to wonder how many others had suffered in silence and who else had turned a blind eye. NBC had to alter its internal policies as a result of the crisis. They enacted new regulations that made covering up wrongdoing grounds for termination. The decline of Matt Lauer occurred quickly. He was a ghost 1 minute and one of the most dependable faces on American television the next. The man who once dominated morning news virtually vanished from public life after being dismissed from NBC Today show in late 2017. Many of his closest pals had severed their connections by 2018. He stopped communicating with those who used to phone and text him. His messages went unanswered. He didn't go out much. According to some, he didn't talk to anyone outside of his immediate family for months. The man who used to host high-profile events and stroll the red carpet abruptly disappeared. He withdrew to his Hamptons mansion. He attempted to blend in there, behind strong Hart Manor's gates. In 2016, he paid $36.05 million to Richard Gere for this enormous beachfront property. It had more than 14,000 square feet of space, 12 bedrooms, 12 baths, and every luxury a person could want, including a heated pool and a tea house by the water. He offered it for $44.08 million at one point. In 2022, it sold for $40.09 million. On occasion, locals would see him going about his daily business, such as picking up breakfast or transporting his children to school, but he always appeared exhausted. He was attempting to fit in. He remained silent but kept other houses close by. His life, which had previously been captured on camera, faded into the background. His marriage to Annette Rook ended at the same time. They had been married for 21 years, and she was an equestrian and model from the Netherlands. Together, they had 3 children. She broke up with him practically immediately after the scandal. It took almost 2 years to get divorced. On September 7, 2019, it became final. According to reports, he accepted all of her demands without protest. She left with assets worth up to $20 million, including complete control of their horse property. The custody agreement for the children was viewed as amicable, and they continued to jointly run the property. They handled it discreetly in spite of the publicity. According to some close to Lauer, he made an effort to keep the marriage intact. However, Roque had already decided. In October 2019, things deteriorated. Journalist Ronan Farrow released Catch and Kill at that time, which contained grave accusations against Lauer. It detailed the alleged 2014 Sochi Olympics rape of Brooke Nevels, a former NBC producer. Lauer insisted that the connection had been voluntary and denied it. However, the book covered more ground than a single tale. The network that had shielded Lauer for years was depicted. It detailed NBC culture of silence, where grievances were suppressed and influential individuals ignored them. The public was taken aback. Once more, the news went viral. Lauer was no longer only a discredited anchor. He was now at the center of a broader discussion about power and abuse in the media. Lauer eventually answered in 2020. He published a lengthy open letter following 2 years of silence. He refuted Neville's claims, stating that the relationship had been improper but not illegal. He charged Ronan Farrow with poor journalism, saying the book failed to adequately reflect his position and overlooked facts. He claimed that sensationalism was more important to the media than the truth. Although he acknowledged his shortcomings, he also took issue with the way the media and public saw him. The letter was heartfelt and comprehensive, but not much changed. The majority viewed it as a feeble effort to save his reputation. Farrow remained true to his reporting. Already the harm was done. Lauer continues to reside in the Hamptons as of 2025. He visits New Zealand as well. Despite all, he still has a substantial net worth of about $80 million. He had received as much as $25 million a year from NBC at the height of his career. He is still financially stable despite having to pay a sizable divorce settlement. He doesn't need to and hasn't gone back to television or started any new endeavors. He maintains a low profile and leads a peaceful, opulent life free from the attention he once desired. An unforeseen event occurred in his personal life. He started dating Shaman Abbas, a longtime friend and CEO at a luxury brand, in 2019, shortly after his divorce. Before the romance began, they had known one another for almost 20 years. They have maintained secrecy despite the media's great curiosity. They divide their time between New York and the Hamptons, travel together, and occasionally go to events. Friends say that Abbas is very supportive. They have now been together for over 5 years. They stay out of the spotlight and appear happy, leading a life very different from Lauer's previous one. Something else changed by 2024. Lauer began getting back in touch with former pals. He started contacting people, sending messages, and making calls after years of seclusion. He appeared more at ease, according to those close to him. He had settled into his new life and was spending more time with his kids. No remorse or indication of a return were present, just a man attempting to get away from the spotlight